Hello, fellow Auraxians. I was too late. Today, Daybreak Games was hit with a massive round of layoffs, mostly people focusing on the H1Z1 title. My last video was the first in the series that was going to discuss the ticking time bomb that is H1Z1, and how the investors in PlanetSide, the player base, were already unfairly carrying part of the burden to prop up this title, and are at risk of getting dragged down with it. We have worked our asses off to fund this game through bad monetization systems for the last year. And my plea at the end of my last video was to ask the PlanetSide development team, really a junior team in Daybreak Games, to go and stand up for this title before it was too late. I was going to go through and explain how PlanetSide was suffering the consequences of having to carry the overhead of a general manager that had led H1Z1 through a 1,600% decline and had contributed nothing to PlanetSide. Yet since he was listed as the general manager of PlanetSide, we could assume we had to help foot the bill for his position. We are in the same position with the executive producer of PlanetSide. And then we're going to talk about the fact that H1Z1 was massively dependent on Forge Light engine development that was paid for by PlanetSide players. And I can guarantee you those costs were not rolled forward and put on the books for H1Z1. And we needed to make sure that we stood up for the title now before the H1Z1 coffers ran out, and there would be no way for H1Z1 to pay PlanetSide back for how much it got from the PlanetSide investor base. I had high hopes that H1Z1 would be a positive influence on PlanetSide, expecting that development would become full circle because they would deploy what is now referred to as Forge Light 2, advancements that were made on H1Z1, and carry those to the PlanetSide 2 platform. In that manner, even though H1Z1 got so much from our investments, that title would be able to pay us back in turn. Now honestly, I've been scared about this for a while. To me, you don't pull the plug at the 1600% decline point. I would expect they would start looking for exit strategies at about the 300 or 400% decline point. The only way I could justify in my mind that they kept pushing so hard on that title is that Facebook shelled out an arm and a leg for the exclusive rights to stream the tournament, which is certainly a terrible idea, but maybe they're just uninformed and they didn't know which way the Battle Royale winds were blowing. But now I realize that's not the case. It is a massive implosion to announce layoffs 1 week into your much hyped tournament for your esports title. You just don't make that move unless you have serious cash flow problems that you need to address immediately. The H1 Pro League tournament is a massive, extremely expensive bet, promising a field of 75 players, a minimum of $50,000 a year. Not to mention the massive support staff it takes to run a tournament like that. What I sincerely hope is that Daybreak Games has no part in footing the bill for that tournament. But if they do, what this round of layoffs represents is that they put that tournament above their employees, and they decided to roll out massive layoffs rather than say, hey, we don't have the cash to run this tournament, we gotta call it off early. That's a cold move to go make such a big bet that you can't take care of your people. They bet so hard on H1Z1, not just the Pro League, that they were running YouTube advertisements for it less than a month ago. PlanetSide never had anywhere near that level of marketing support. I was thinking about just how much weight they had thrown behind this title, and then decided to look up how many people were playing H1Z1 and how many people were playing PlanetSide. And when I looked that up on Wednesday evening, there were 3,105 people playing H1Z1, and there were 3,103 people playing PlanetSide. H1Z1 was free, they're not making any money from selling it. PlanetSide, on the other hand, has thousands of people running memberships. How is it that H1Z1 is getting marketing support when PlanetSide, a game that's been neglected and is 3 years older than it, could be running similar player counts at a similar time of day? None of the math has been adding up on the title for a long time now. I assume that H1Z1 had just made so much money, they were able to just keep going with it. And I've been waiting for that moment where they look back and say, hey, whoa, this Forge Light engine that we built this on, most of that was paid for by PlanetSide players. We need to reassess the cost of what it really took to make H1Z1. We need to consider how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in development PlanetSide investors paid for never made their way into that title. And that's where we get back to PlanetSide right now. The ASP system made no sense to me. It does nothing for new players. It's not a comprehensive system for veteran players. It involves selling power because you basically have to pay to get into it, and then you get some perks if you do. They announced it, and then without doing any playtests, they sent it to live. They laid out the big concerns about the system to the producer, and it fell on completely deaf ears, which made no sense to me. There's no reason to piss off the community and rush this thing. Another week or two wouldn't be a problem unless you had major cash flow issues. And you had an executive producer that was trying to backfill some serious cash flow problems from another title. They just rushed a crappy monetization system into PlanetSide 2 so they could pay for a different title. It is everything I feared and worse. Not getting your fair due as a PlanetSide 2 investor sucks for sure. But on top of that, using our passion for the game to pay for your bad bet elsewhere is just a vicious, vicious low. I've spent a long time trying to serve the PlanetSide 2 community. Most of that is new players, doing tutorials, doing guides. And in a close second is players that are current fans of the game, that love it now. I try to promote the game to keep the experience going, to keep bringing new people in for you to play with. But the part of the community I have drastically underserved is the disenfranchised veterans. And I know to them I sound like a parrot or a shill, but that's not the case at all. The key to the future of this game and its future success is making decisions that will re-attract disenfranchised veteran players. And I haven't spent all this time touting it, not understanding all the things that are wrong with it. I just know the game needs hype to survive. But the one thing those disenfranchised veteran players very severely warned me about is that if you open yourself up to negative monetization schemes like loot boxes, they will abuse it. And I totally understood where they were coming from. I thought it was a necessary calculated risk. And most of those people exited the moment those loot crates were announced. And they very understandably sent me a lot of nasty grams for backing up loot crates in the game. And I would still be okay with them if they could generate functional development. But it never did. They never gave PlanetSide the resources its investors earned by buying into the system. Instead, upper management decided when it was in a tough spot, it would force the PlanetSide developers to rush a crappy monetization system into the game to make up for shortcomings in a different title. I will never put another dime into this game until we see a serious commitment from Daybreak's upper management to our current development team and to putting more resources in the company towards PlanetSide. And it's not just a promise, it's results. I will not spend another ounce of my current Daybreak cash so it can stay on the books as unearned revenue and still be a liability. Any recurring membership will encourage upper management to abuse this player base. Any more money you put into this game is at the same risk of going to a different title. I encourage you to log in as often as possible. They need to know there is a large player base that is backing this game. If you are a player that has not logged into PlanetSide for a long time, consider doing so. Right now, they will be assessing which title they own is the strongest bet. But there needs to be a precipitous drop in revenue from this game for them to stop and think that they need to stop abusing this player base. Sadly, a lot of people lost their jobs today, but PlanetSide is a place for them to go. One of those people that lost their job is known as Xanderclaws, an old school level designer for PlanetSide 2. The last time we went through a round of layoffs, they were followed pretty quickly by some new hirings. We need to make sure that upper management recommits themselves to this title and can do so by rehiring some of those people they let go to work on the PlanetSide 2 title again. At this point, he may want nothing to do with Daybreak Games, 10 years in and then getting laid off. But hiring someone with the experience of Xanderclaws right now is just the boon it needs to get something like the NS Sanctuary designed. That's all the important things I have for right now. I'll be responding to Rel when we're not in such a critical, pivotal moment. But I want to reiterate my massive support for him. I would have given up on this game long ago if Daybreak had hired someone with any less experience in the game than him. Rel has helped stabilize this game and increase its financial return, while teams of industry experts with 10 times as much experience as him guided a game to 1,600% decline. Upper management needs to take notice that passion and competence will beat credentials and experience any day of the week. And although he may not understand it, the most powerful tool he can wield at this moment is an engaged active user base that is livid at the utter betrayal of upper management and is fully willing to go on strike to enact change. In memory of some of the developers that we lost today, I am going to be hosting a 3-way battle on the Connery server Friday the 27th, 7 p.m. Pacific time. It will take place at one of the bases that Xanderclaws designed. Ideally, that will be on Indar at Quartzridge Camp. There will be links in the description that lay out the bases he designed, and also to my Discord where the event will be hosted. To arms, my fellow Auraxians, and until next time, I will see you planetside.